Native Land Pod is a production of iHeartRadio in partnership with Reason Choice Media. Welcome home, y'all. This is episode 120 of Native Land Pod. The last 20 have been amazing. That has been since I joined the show, but don't even worry about that. But this is where we give you our breakdown of all things politics and culture. I am your host, Bakari Sellers. I'm joined by the amazing Angela Rye, the uber-talented Andrew Gillum, and today we have our
MVP.
Guest host.
MVP.
Oh my goodness, she is amazing. I know when we were talking about this, you were number one on my list, respectfully to everybody else, but Reecie Colbert. How are you? And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, I did go through this. It's not Colbert. You don't roll it. It's Colbert. Did I get that right, Reecie?
It's Colbert, honey, but Colbert works too. It has a nice little flavor.
Get it.
She is a Sirius XM host. I believe it's Sirius 126, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
We know her, and I got the chance to know her because we were supporting the former vice president of the United States and her efforts to be president even before she was VP. One of the leaders of the K-Hive, truly. She is, I think she would probably tell you, though, her number 1 and 2 job are being an amazing wife and an amazing mother and all of those great things. We love you, Reecie, and welcome to the show.
Welcome home, Reecie.
Yay. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
So, Reecie, we've been trying this new piece, and I think that and by the way, y'all, I am a little bit under the weather. I just ain't gonna lie to you.
Yeah.
Can you
I'm
tell?
sniffling on y'all.
His chest is glowing. What is it? What's
It's
that?
Vicks, it's Vicks
Vapor rub.
I put some Vicks on my chest, and I'm putting it on my feet with my socks.
He need to put some on this part of his hair to fluff it up right here.
Hey, friend, those are
That's
curls. Those are curls.
No,
These are
I got curls
and
too.
I use Rucker Roots. Okay. So
Well, I
let's
need Ellen to come put in that part that you missed because she's going to be mad for advertising her product with that smash down curl right here.
Don't
Ellen,
worry,
I got you, sis.
She gonna come around that corner in a minute with some curl cream.
Just a little bang.
Exactly.
Just a little bang. A little
He tried to do a
extra
side
little
swoop. She said, not on my watch. Okay.
Hey, oh Lord. Anyway, so we now have what's called FYSA Headlines. FYSA. I'm working on this name, but FYSA, which is for your situational awareness. That's hard to say. But I think it's a dope segment that Angela dreamed up because, Reecie, we get a chance to run down some of the things that have been happening and talk about more than 1 or 2 topics. We can talk about 6 or 7 pretty quickly. We just hit them. Andrew spends a lot more time than everybody else.
Allegedly.
You still introducing the segment, talking about Andrew.
I could get through it without all these chime-ins, all these footnotes.
15 minutes later.
I think that one of the things that we've been highlighting, though, and something that people like to say is racism is dead. No, it's not. I want to go to this first clip from Vinny Jr. from Real Madrid. He's a soccer player, one of the best teams in the entire world. How he heard racist slurs on the field again. Let's start there.
So it's in another language, B, so we should probably tell them.
Spanish.
We should probably tell them what's happening.
Well, I mean, I think that one of the things that I was trying to.
I forgot that it's, you need to put that back, Nick. We don't know what they said. Who speaks Spanish on here?
Un poquito.
Que pasa?
Lord have mercy.
Y'all you got to do better.
He was just saying in the clip that he just wanted Black people to be able to play soccer and not suffer football, their kind of football.
He wanted to be able to play football and for Black people not to have to suffer, right?
Yeah.
I'm just well done statement. And what you heard with the applause was in the press room, obviously following the match. I would assume some of the coaching staff and some of his fellow players were there, but also the media is what that room is generally for. But he is reacting in tears to rounds of applause.
So the Brazil's Football Confederation requested FIFA and UEFA, I don't know that one, to hand exemplary punishments to anyone guilty of racially abusing Vinny Jr. And they called for that after a player from Benfica, I don't know, BENFICA, called him a monkey after the Brazil international scored the only goal of the game. And so that is what happened. His coach told him that, he understood if he didn't want to continue playing in that particular game. And what we understand is that he has been called a monkey 5 times.
That he's heard.
Yeah. Oh, that's true. That he's heard. So, but that is
point.
what is being reported. This is from an ESPN story. So I just wanted to go and find us a translation since I still don't know what was said in that clip.
Reecie, do you think the demands of the team would qualify in the United States as DEI? Would it be considered special consideration in Trump's America for the team to be heard by saying, hey, we need apology and steps taken to keep these kinds of racial verbal slurs from
if they even do that much? They would normally just gaslight and be like, well, aren't you rich and aren't you famous? So
True.
why do you care? There would be no sensitivity even in this country. But I think that people would be a little bit hesitant to be that bold, considering who might be around them and who might not take too kindly to hearing that word in their presence.
We got to get back to bullying sometimes. All right.
Period.
Oh, Lord.
Free speech at your own risk.
It's free speech with consequence.
Mm-hmm.
Also, something that I thought people blew a little bit out of proportion. I want to hear you all's thoughts. Is Angela's favorite governor, Gavin Newsom, was trying to relate to an Atlanta audience by saying, I scored a 960 on the SATs too. It was a white audience, but our good friend, I think all of our friends, a friend of the show, Andre Dickens, was the one interviewing him on this book tour. And just last week, Andrew, what did I say about progressives? I wanted to see them come to the South.
That's it. You said it when we talked about these far west, Pacific Northwest. I'm talking geopolitically. White
you better damn watch it.
I'm just saying, Pacific Northwest.
You better watch it.
Seattle, what's up?
You better watch it.
That you want to see them come to the South.
Yeah, I want to see AOC come to the South too. Let's play this clip though, and then let's talk about it on the other side, because I really want to hear Angela and Reecie kind of delve into this a little bit.
I'm just trying to press upon you. I'm like you. I'm no better than you. I'm a 960 SAT guy. And I'm not trying to offend anyone, trying to act all there if you got 940.
What we understand to be the case with this conversation is this is not new. He's talking about being dyslexic, not reading speeches, not being able to read speeches. And in this particular moment, he's talking about his own journey and having to come to terms with his own history. Wearing a mask, he talked about in the clip, his mom finding the cracks in his mask and him having to decide to take the thing off. So he's letting it all out in this book, even talking about an affair with the staffer. And on this particular moment, he is saying that he struggled even with the SAT. And I think what's unfortunate about it is, and we've all had these moments, we can be inarticulate. We just can be. We can be not as sensitive about certain things, especially when there are a story to tell. Like he's talking about himself and he's saying that he does not consider himself higher than anybody else. I think that's normal when you're talking about someone who's an elected official, the highest office in the state, not Georgia, but in California. And so I don't see as much wrong with it. I just think that he, in his perpetual shade throwing, can sometimes be so witty that you put your foot in your mouth. Y'all know I know that very well, and I actually can relate to him on it. I put my foot in my mouth all the time and be like, oh, I didn't even mean it like that. Like, I'll be like, shots fired and somebody just got shot. Bad analogy. Sorry, guys. It happens.
That's real poor.
Yeah, that was
Reecie.
terrible.
Well, I'm not one to vouch
Bakari
for a
with your
white man or to try to say, well, he wasn't being X, Y, and Z. But I think context matters. And we see the danger of taking 10 seconds out of a clip and then adding context that isn't actually there. And so, it's unfortunate that people took that to mean that he was addressing Mayor Dickens that way or addressing a black crowd, which he wasn't. And this is the kind of thing that, he wants to be president, Jan.
Yeah.
This is his soft launch, his memoir. He's putting it all out there, like Ange said, to make sure that he's putting all the skeletons out the closet. But this is what all of them are going to have to deal with. They're going to have to deal with the fact that when you say things, it can look a certain way, even if that's not what was actually happening in that moment. So Welcome to the 2028 campaign, Gavin.
There it
also,
is.
Democrats have to stop doing dumb shit, which is eating our own, because that Republican spin cycle is a monster. And what we saw was we saw Nicki Minaj tweet about it. We saw Alex Berkowitz, I believe is his name, or Bersowitz, who's kind of the organizer of the Black influencers, tweet about it. We saw academics tweet about it. And then it became a cycle that was amplified by bots.
I was going to say,
imagine your name being academics and you not smart, by the way.
I think it started.
I bet he got the 940 Gavin was talking about. Oh, my racist? No, bitch, I'm black.
Angela, my bad.
Sorry. I'm done. I was out on the soapbox. I'm sorry.
I think it started with the bots, to be truthful about it. Reecie rightly called this for what it is. This is presidential politics 2028. It's already started and it's been started, to be quite frank about it. But the truth is that this is the kind of thing that innocent bystanders on the internet will come into contact with. And without knowing what the audience looked like, without knowing Mayor Dickens was opposite him in that chair in an interview style, without knowing anything about the governor's biography. I talked, I guess it was last week, about his dyslexia, and that I respected the kind of effort that the man has to put in and day out to prepare for a press day, to prepare for a meeting, being debilitated by his inability to read as we might normally, you or I might normally do, having dyslexia. But no doubt, North Korea, the Chinese, the Russians, they catch hold of these things in a nanosecond. Yep. And before we know it, it has filtrated through every nook and cranny of our community. And people are big mad about what they think happened. And it never went down.
It didn't happen. Yep.
Yeah.
And Gavin Newsom, there are a lot of issues that I have with Gavin Newsom. There are a lot of issues that all four of us have. He ain't racist, but he may have some blind spots, and he was definitely inarticulate, to use Angela's point. I want to go to the next one, because this is
May is also very kind, but keep going.
This is something that bothered me a little bit. Well, we have John Davidson, who shouted who said nigga at Center Stars with the hard ER, with Michael B. Jordan and Delroy Lindo at BAFTA. And I realized that I just don't understand Tourette's the way that I should. I don't think that I fully understand, and I'm just ignorant to it. I mean, there were a lot of jokes being made, like he didn't scream white power at white folk who were on the stage or anything else. So why scream nigger? And I think that people really don't understand it. But let's listen to the clip and then talk on the other side about what we saw and how Michael B. Jordan and Delroy handled this.
Delroy and I are delighted to be presenting the first BAFTA of the night for a vital part of movie making.
You may have heard some strong and offensive language tonight. If you've seen the film I Swear, you will know that film is about the experience of a person with Tourette syndrome. Tourette syndrome is a disability, and the tics you've heard tonight are involuntary, which means the person who has Tourette syndrome has no control over their language. We apologize if you were offended.
I hate those kind of apologies, where they talk about if, like, I apologize if. Once you get to if, you can delete everything you said before that. You know, the biggest concern here, Nick, I think somebody's typing, but I think the biggest concern here is, you know, there's been no acknowledgement for what the experience, our psychological, ancestral, traumatic experience is with the N-word, being shouted at us, the violence behind the language, being on stage at such an incredible moment, which ended up being an incredible evening for the Center's cast, crew, and production team. That was stolen from them by someone who, sure, you have an uncontrollable tic that causes you to use words that you shouldn't. But at some point, there should also be an apology for the use of the word. If it's uncontrollable and it's not your desire, there should be an apology. Now, there are reports that the gentleman with Tourette's reached out to Warner Brothers to apologize to Michael B. Jordan and Delroy. And I think that ultimately it would be nice for it to be just as loud as the accommodations, the apology, and the acknowledgement about his condition.
How does this is my question, and I hope a viewer answers this question or can help me with this. But how does one formulate through Tourette's a racial slur? Like I am fascinated by this part of the conversation. Like how is that something that is triggered during that particular moment, involuntarily, as they say, with Black folk on the stage? Like I think a lot of people are having trouble with the involuntariness of the act that occurred with all the context we see. Does that make sense?
I don't think he loses his brain capacity. Like, I think his brain computes that there are Black people on the stage, so on and so forth. This particular form of Tourette's, as I have read only recently, of course, only about 10% of people with Tourette's involuntary reaction, the syndrome, have this form of Tourette's where involuntarily they shout insults, they use profanity. There was a video Lolo shared with us, and I don't even know if we have that to play, Nick. If we do, a young African-American woman who has Tourette's as well goes on to explain the situation, and all throughout her explanation, she is having these involuntary reactions, both physically, but also in her language. And you kind of have to, she says that, and so you know it's coming, but it still was a shocker. And I really appreciated people like that who could go out there, explain it without giving defense or cover to any one person or another. But I think it's the form of Tourette's, legitimate form of Tourette's that causes the involuntary.
But that still doesn't mean that you
blame my ignorance. Blame my ignorance, and I think that a lot of us.
But apology ain't ignorant.
We can talk about it in a way that we don't. That we're not skeptical. Correct. And I understand that the trauma that Black people have experienced and the racial abuse that we've experienced makes us skeptical about conditions that we're not as familiar with. I think we can hold space for the fact that this man, John Davidson, has an involuntary tic, that he has the condition as he stated, and that there was a whole movie there that was being honored, and that was the purpose for him being there. I think we can hold space for for accepting that just because you have this condition doesn't mean that you should be hidden away, locked away in a corner or something like that. That is ableist to have that notion. We can accept that, as well as, and this is the part that I think Black people have had to fight for in this discussion, for what Michael B. Jordan and Delroy Lindo experienced. Not just from hearing that, and also Hannah Belcher came out and said that she experienced that, as well as another Black woman. We can hold space for what they experienced and the gravity of that word being hurled at them in front of an international audience, and BBC keeping that slur in the program when they felt perfectly fine editing out other things. So I think that we need to have that part of the discussion. And I think there's a time for awareness. And I think this is an opportunity for everybody to be more aware of Tourette's and all those things. Yeah. But that should not be at the expense, or that should not be used as a weapon then to minimize what these men experience, and the same way that what they experience should not be used as a weapon to be ableist towards people with Tourette's. There has to be some balance to the situation, but unfortunately there wasn't that balance. And that's why, after so much kicking and screaming and yelling about how harmful that was, now there's been an apology from BAFTA. Now there's been an apology and kind of a pivot in recognizing the harm that was experienced.
We have a lot to say on this, and we're supposed to do our mini pod on this, and Reecie is staying with us. So just to flag that, I know we are deep into this in FYSA, but we have other clips. So hopefully we can get to more of this on our mini pod.
Thank you. I mean, I was about to say that, Angela.
Oh, okay.
Thank you so much.
I'm so sorry. You're welcome.
She got me from saying something, so that's good.
So I first of all, I also wanted to say that I have a level of sensitivity to this issue, because Michael B. Jordan, his name is Michael Bakari Jordan, and the fact that he does not,
I have never seen somebody.
I mean, but just imagine your name is Bakari, and you hide it.
His name
from the world
is Michael B. Jordan. The B did probably because of Michael Jordan, number 23. He don't want no confusion. So if you don't get your B- ass over to the next topic.
So since Angela took that time, Mr. Host, I just want to quickly say the fault. I want to say this in the main show, that I put the majority of fault of this situation with the BBC and with BAFTA, the organization, because there were steps that could have been and should have been taken, that they were more focused on accommodating the disability of one segment of the community without to quite frankly, at the sacrifice of the injury to a whole nother part that they may have considered, frankly, less injured at the time than those with a disability. But they could have done better. Again, this was in Europe. They've exported the transatlantic slave trade to us.
Jesus, Andrew.
We know their history well, but I'm just saying it's a community that may not be as well adjusted to what it means to have to deal with the sensitivities and the cruelties affecting, Black and brown people in this country.
So, that's a natural segue, because I want to hear what Andrew has to say about Idaho, which is not in Europe.
I don't know no ho.
But
Idaho.
Idaho.
Why would we like that as kids? Like, what's wrong with us?
Everybody said it.
Bakari,
at least 10
you want me
times.
to throw to this, or you throwing to it?
You can do. You're the executive producer. I know. Yeah, that wasn't even a suggestion.
I think you step back, brother.
That's because he wasn't listening on the call. I was supposed to
do it. Please talk about Post Falls, Idaho, Angela. Please.
No, you can have it. I just was saying, do you want me to do it since I stole your thunder on the mini pod, and then as a result, Andrew mini podded on here? So I was wondering.
Look, so we're going to talk about what happens with the City Council of Post Falls, Idaho, and I just found this to be just so much ignorance, except for one city council person. Let's watch this clip.
Removing Juneteenth from the list of city holidays and restoring Columbus Day, which I believe is a more appropriate holiday honoring our American heritage.
I move to approve the amendment to the personnel policy and holiday schedule.
Second.
A motion in multiple seconds. Further discussion?
I do have one comment on it.
Oh, sorry.
Juneteenth celebrates the actual end of slavery in the United States. And the abolition of slavery, I believe, is one of the crowning achievements of Western civilization and is certainly worthy of celebration. On the flip side, North America, as we know it, in the United States entirely would not exist if it were not for the expeditions of Christopher Columbus and other European explorers, which are also worth celebrating. So I don't know if you would consider doing an every other year type of thing, but I think both are very relevant to our history and worth celebrating.
I don't want to change the holiday schedule up. I think that's a lot of complexity. My own view is that Juneteenth is something that nobody had heard of until 5 years ago and was pushed for political purposes. And so I'm not in favor of having that in.
I mean, we could talk about the ahistorical nature of that. We could talk about the fact that nobody heard about Juneteenth until 5 years ago, which is just, that's why you need to read. Or we can talk about the emphasis on Christopher Columbus.
North America existed.
Where do you? I mean, go ahead, Reecie. And also, his last name is Westland, I believe. Westlund. And so, for those of you all who wanted an action item, please make sure you send your letters to Post Falls, Idaho, or call them and make sure you let them know how you feel. I mean, we might as well activate our listeners so that they can educate the City Council of Post Falls, Idaho. Reecie, go ahead and chime in.
I mean, how many Black people could possibly even be in Post Falls anyway? Like, this is how powerful and how ingrained we are in their brain that they probably couldn't even throw a rock and hit a Black person, but they have to feel like they're taking something away from this. I'm actually happy for every single person. Take the hoods off.
Amen.
Just do everything that you want to do to show us who you are. I'm glad that there are no illusions about it. Tell us how you feel so that we know where you stand with it. So I'm not mad at it. I'm sure I'm going to look it up in the meantime. I thought it was Idaho City. If it's Idaho City literally has 2 Black people. And not like 2%. I mean, 2 Black people. So they're grasping at straws for relevance. They're grasping at straws for power. But what they're showing us is that we're the ones who have the power, because even when we're not anywhere near them, they're still obsessed with Black people.
I did you a favor, sis, and I've Googled the census data. And people who are only Black make up 0.3% of the population. And nonetheless, Juneteenth should still be celebrated, because the idea is that at this point, the Confederates were defeated. The Union won. And as Idaho is a part of said Union, you should be celebrating the end of slavery. I was really confused in that clip about why they were talking about changing the holiday schedule as if June and November are in the same months, first of all. Second of all, around these parts, the only Christopher we recognize is Wallace, and that is Biggie Smalls. We do not recognize Christopher Columbus. And where I'm from, since there was so much Pacific Northwest shade in earlier moments in this podcast, we celebrate Indigenous Peoples Day. So, I don't know what Post Falls is doing, but they need to post fall off of that. That was dumb.
Oh, look at you playing with your words. All right. Next, shout out to.
I could be inarticulate and articulate. It's both.
You were great.
I could do both.
That alliteration was great. Shout out to one of Andrew's former colleagues who we know and love, Mayor Van Johnson of Savannah, Georgia. The African American Mayors Association is just a dope association. I love the work that they do. I love their executive director. I love all the mayors. Stephen Reed was the last president, I do believe. This current president is Mayor Van Johnson of Savannah, GA. And he actually called, this is some good news finally, for flags to be flown at half-mast for Reverend Jesse Jackson. Let's watch this clip.
I'm Van Johnson, mayor of the city of Savannah, Georgia, and the president of the African American Mayors Association. The Reverend Jesse Louis Jackson was one of the most inspirational and transformational figures in American history. Through his historic presidential campaigns, he did more than keep hope alive. He expanded the boundaries of what was possible. His leadership helped lay the foundation for the election of the first Black president and the first Black woman vice president of the United States, as well as mayors in cities across the nation. Because of Reverend Jackson's courage and his conviction, generations of little boys and little girls grew up believing that anything is possible. Like Martin Luther King Jr., Reverend Jackson envisioned an America that appreciates our differences and embraces diversity as a source of strength. His life's work moved us closer to that vision. Because of Reverend Jackson's efforts, I have the privilege of serving as mayor of this great city. We choose who we honor, and Reverend Jackson deserves the highest honor that a president, that governors, and that mayors can bestow. Today, I am calling on all of the AAMA member mayors and mayors throughout this country to stand with me in ordering that flags at city halls and municipal buildings throughout this country be lowered to half-staff from Sunday, March the 1st through Saturday, March the 7th, in tribute to Reverend Jackson's extraordinary legacy. I also urge our president and our governors to do what is right and honorable by giving honor where it is due. Rest in peace and rest in power, Reverend Jackson. You fought a good fight and you have earned your rest.
Amen. Andrew,
good.
I wanted to hear your
good.
thoughts on
I mean, good. I think that's a good way for mayors to exercise what power they have. Unfortunately, Republicans are proving themselves petty and to the task, as always, refusing to allow Reverend Jackson to lie in honor at the Capitol. And while in Florida, they had the temerity to lower flags for Charlie Kirk, no such order has come since the passing of Reverend Jackson, someone who actually fought tirelessly to bring people together, all people, not just some, but all people. When you compare that to the life and example of more divisive figures who've been honored. But the beauty is that because of Reverend Jackson's work and his service and his sacrifice, we now have mayors who are Black, sitting in city hall chambers all around this country, and they have the power to issue their own local edicts and proclamations to lower the flag. And so I'm glad to see Savannah leading the way.
You know, one of the things that's amazing is that, I don't know about amazing, but you do need to, I'm a big believer in telling people when they do the work the right way. The governor of South Carolina, where Jesse Jackson is from, Henry McMaster, has not only lowered the flag to half-mast, but he's also allowed Jesse Jackson on next Monday to lie in state in the state capitol here, and his family will be here. Yusef will be here. Jesse, the whole family, he's traversing his way from Chicago, making a stop in Kentucky, and will be celebrated here in his home state of South Carolina. So Governor McMaster, who actually beat me, is doing something that I am going to applaud him for, which is honorable. And I hate the bar is so low, but I do think it's necessary for us to give people their flowers when they do something right. Also brings us to what we all saw this week, which was an hour and 41 minutes. It was the longest State of the Union address that we've seen. He actually could have just put this on True Social at 2 a.m. But instead, he was long-winded and spoke to us. And Al Green, not the singer, but Congressman Al Green, actually had a sign at Trump's State of the Union that said, "Black people are not apes." Let's hear from Congressman Al Green about that and chat about that. And then I want to jump into a little longer conversation about some of the things we saw in the State of the Union this week.
As you know, the president has depicted the former president as apes. And if you tolerate this level of racism, you perpetuate it. I refuse to tolerate it. I don't want to see it normalized. And that's why I flashed this to the president so that there will be no question as to where I stand. He needs to know that there are some people who have the courage to tell him things that he doesn't want to hear and that nobody else will tell him. And on some issues, it's better to stand alone than not stand at all. So I stood alone to let the president know that Black people are apes. And I told him this is not something that he should pursue. And I'm not going to let this be the end of it.
Well, Al Green stays a hero on my phone, my screensaver from last year's State of the Union, when Brother Boss lifted up a cane to make his message exclamation marked to President Trump for his attention. But I respect the member, obviously, and I very much so value. We talked about this last week. The reason why we have to keep speaking up when these things happen, even when, quite frankly, we're not surprised by the perpetuators of it, is because of the way in which it then starts to frame and shape the view of everyday white folks about how it is that they get to treat us and interact with us and forget our humanity because they have they have basically compared us to animals, and simply because we both have big brains. There are differences there, but the biggest thing is that you do it with the intention of trying to insult, right? To admonish, to make us to feel less than. The animal, and what hurts me the most, it is the fact that these folks really, in today's world, society, still haven't woken up to the fact that they have equals among manhood, and quite frankly, they have superiors. And we've certainly been the superiors when it comes to the moral fiber of this country, and we continue to have to remind folks of what their moral obligations are.
Yeah. Let's jump into the State of the Union, because we, this week we saw a lot of different clips and a lot of different, there's a lot of ground to cover. One of the first things that kind of struck me was just, even in the State of the Union, from that August body, he didn't shy away from the racism, particularly when he talked about Somalians, comparing them to pirates. He's already called them filthy before, etc. But Reps Ilhan, Omar, and Rashida Talib, they heckled Trump a little. Let's watch this clip.
That is why I'm also asking you to end deadly sanctuary cities that protect the criminals and enact serious penalties for public officials who block the removal of criminal aliens. In many cases, drug lords, murderers all over our country, they're blocking the removal of these people out of our country, and you should be ashamed of yourself.
They didn't heckle him. They responded, right? And I have to tell you, I know that the speaker wanted Democrats to fold their hands and look sternly and quietly at the podium. But that just doesn't play in a world right now where you got an unhinged, disrespectful grifter at the helm of the office and in the well of the U.S. Congress is throwing racist ass insults. And we're supposed to fold our hands and look sternly in response? No, I'm glad they spoke up. And I'm not rigid. I'm not generally a person who bucks decorum, but this isn't bucking decorum for decorum's sake. This is people's lives on the line, and a lying ass president getting up there ignoring deaths at the hands of his administration and frankly at his direction. So good for the two members. I wish they were joined by more.
Let me also just for Oh, I just wanted to say what she was yelling out for those individuals who may not have heard it clearly. One of the things that she was yelling out repeatedly was that you have killed Americans, referring to Renee Good and Mr. Preddy, who were killed by Alex Preddy, who were killed by ICE.
Keith Porter Jr.
And Keith Porter Jr., who we always have to lift his name up. Andrew, before the rest jump in, though, I agree with you on this, because I think that some of the consternation we get from listeners is that I may be too decorum oriented, right? I'm not a rabble rouser, right? I believe in there's certain things that you should do in decorum. I agree with you on this point, but explain to people, in your opinion, what's the difference between Ilhan Omar's response and Ilhan Omar? I've done that multiple times. I apologize, Congressman. That's when I was going to flip you off, but I'm improving. I'm growing.
What happened to decorum?
I'm maturing right before our eyes. And Representative Joe Wilson and his remarks to Barack Obama.
Well, you lie. I can't even say lie as an adult in my mama's house. It's that big of a no-no. You lie and then correcting the record by saying you killed, right? So they didn't heckle him. They responded to him, and what he forgot to mention from his written remarks, and probably wasn't included in his written remarks, is the fact that you have not had a successful reign as it relates to immigration enforcement. That was the message he was perpetuating, right? That that they have gotten immigration under control, but failed to mention deaths at the hands of the federal government. They were right to call it out.
I want to just say, in addition to Ilhan Omar, who was yelling out, "You have killed Americans," and when he said back to her, "You should be ashamed," she said, "No, you should be ashamed." And also, right after that, the white Confederates, also known as members of Congress who support Donald Trump, started chanting USA. And in response to that, Rashida Talib was saying back, KKK, KKK, which I thought was brilliant. There is a time and a place for decorum, and I would argue it's not under authoritarianism and fascism.
Fair enough. That's it. Reecie, your thoughts?
We saw Lauren Boebert and we saw Marjorie Taylor Greene act like banshees in the wild during Joe Biden's State of the Unions. Mm-hmm. And so now all of a sudden, Republicans have rediscovered the need for decorum, as Ange pointed out. I mean, this is a authoritarian fascist regime, and you have a president who's up there spewing racist propaganda, and that same racist propaganda that people swallowed whole gave a permission slip for ICE, who has no authority. I will always say this. They are not law enforcement. They are immigration enforcement. For ICE to go into Minnesota, Minneapolis, and kill American citizens. They shouldn't be killing anybody regardless of citizenship. But the whole point is that I think what Ilhan was lifting up, Congresswoman Omar was lifting up, is that you're talking all this mess about Somalians. There were no Somalian casualties, thank God. There shouldn't have been any casualties. With who they were terrorizing were white people. They were terrorizing an entire city. It cost hundreds of millions of dollars of economic activity. It cost hundreds of millions of dollars of taxpayer dollars. And they accomplished nothing that man was up there lying about. And so I think it's important to correct the record when people are sitting up there spewing racist lies in front of an audience that's lapping it up, when their own sister and brethren and meemaws and peepaws was getting their heads bashed in by ICE.
Not only were there lies going on in the ICE segment, and the president, I haven't seen someone lie as religiously as him. Now, we all have that cousin in our family who every time they open their mouth, just lie. You got that one cousin.
Well, what had happened was.
I know. Back when I was in high school, I averaged 47 points a game.
The bleach.
And do you know they told me?
You took the bleach.
Do you know they told me?
But Donald Trump just be lying for lying's sake. Mm-hmm. He lied on the economy so much last night. I mean, let's talk about tariffs. Let's talk
Before
about
you go to the economy, Bakari,
we got clips.
Can we just quickly acknowledge also that while he was on that rant about Minnesota and about Somalis, that he then chose the next paragraph to announce an anti-corruption effort and put Vance at the helm of it, when Vance's job should be the easiest thing in the world. He just needs to camp out in the White House. The story will start with corruption and end with corruption right there. But he's trying to sell this narrative about Somalians, and put Vance over corruption when the corruption is there. They are it.
Mm-hmm.
Can we roll
Sorry
a
about
clip?
that, Bakari.
But not
Let's
only
roll
that,
a
I mean,
clip.
no, roll it. But I just want people to know the footnote is that in Minnesota, the head of the quote unquote Somali fraud was a white woman. Okay, let's clarify this. So, but there is fraud. There is fraud. Don't get me wrong. And they got to root it out. And there's all that stuff. But
Joe Biden pretty much did.
Yeah, and not only that, Tim Walz actually did as well. But go ahead, let's roll that clip, Angela, that you were tossing to.
So despite the disappointing ruling, these powerful country-saving, it's saving our country, the kind of money we're taking in, peace-protecting. Many of the wars I settled was because of the threat of tariffs. I wouldn't have been able to settle them without. Will remain in place under fully approved and tested alternative legal statutes. And they have been tested for a long time. They're a little more complex, but they're actually probably better, leading to a solution that will be even stronger than before. Congressional action will not be necessary. It's already time-tested and approved. And as time goes by, I believe the tariffs paid for by foreign countries will, like in the past, substantially replace the modern-day system of income tax, taking a great financial burden off the people that I love.
He means that. Just the people he loves.
Can I tell y'all something really quick on this tariffs point? Last week, I got an email from FedEx, and it said that I needed to pay a fee in order for them to release my package. I'm like, what type of spam is this? And I'm looking, trying to find, like, it says FedExXYZ.com or something. No, it's FedEx.com. And I mentioned it to, like, our Machetes crew, like, hey, y'all, what is, and they were like, oh, that's your tariff. Right? Yeah. Like, that is the situation. And so I just want to bring that home for people, because while this bumbling fool is up there telling people that the foreign countries are paying the tariffs, hey, everybody, my name is Angela Rye. I am the foreign country paying the tariff.
Temu not sending no check.
Well, I didn't order from Temu, but I'm just saying, so are the rest of you. Like, let's be very clear about what is going on. So I was shocked. Not that he said anything that would shade the Supreme Court justices. He's been doing that. But in that empty chamber, in that empty House chamber, he looked right at them people and said, and the foreign countries are going to pay for it. And then Mike Johnson and J.D. Vance stood up to clap for something they knew was a bald-faced lie. Remarkable.
Can I jump in?
Please.
I know y'all audience may not be necessarily familiar with me, but I have a business economics degree from UCLA, okay, and accounting, and an MBA from Northeastern. And so it kills me to hear this man, who I don't know if he genuinely believes this himself, that foreign countries pay the tariffs. This is the biggest tax hike on Americans. The hundreds of billions of dollars in tariffs have been paid by Americans. China does not pay the tariffs. India, the UK, we pay the tariffs. So it's not going to replace a tax on Americans, because this is a tax on Americans. And that's why you have states like Illinois and other states, I can't remember all of them right now, that are suing to get the money back from their own constituents. And this is also a regressive tax because, and as you pointed out, if you get a bill for some tariffs, you're paying that because you're a consumer, as opposed to our progressive tax system, which says, in theory, the wealthier are supposed to pay more than those at the bottom of the tax bracket. I'm definitely at the bottom compared to Elon Musk or somebody else. And so it's never going to replace it, because you can't raise enough revenue off of tariffs alone, because tariffs are a tax on goods that we are procuring within the supply chain system. But also, what is so completely absurd and unhinged about this is that through losing that Supreme Court case, they actually gave him a win, because the most detrimental thing to this economy has been the tariffs. Not just that there is a tax on Americans, but that there's uncertainty, because the tariffs are illegal. And what he's talked about, saying it won't go through Congress, is still illegal to do, which means further uncertainty. Companies are not going to want to make big business decisions because tariffs could be repealed. And so there's more uncertainty in the job market, in the corporate system, and throughout the entire world around these tariffs that he is hell-bent on maintaining, even though the Supreme Court tried to help him out a little bit. So this is all really, really, really stupid. But for anybody who is confused out there, this is not bringing money in from foreign countries. Nobody in another country is paying these tariffs. It is only us that is paying it.
You know, the worst, what the worst part about it is that Donald Trump convinced himself that people, the American people, were going to look at the fact that they had gone to the grocery store earlier that day and that they noticeably paid more to that day, yesterday, than they did a year ago before he was president. So the whole speech was a tale of two cities. It was like Donald Trump is in one world, one stratosphere. Everyday folks are in another. The worst thing, I guess, the scariest thing about our economy right now, y'all, it ain't the stock market and all that stuff that he was touting. It is that overwhelmingly Americans are reporting feeling tight in their wallets because of paying for gas, groceries, daycare, childcare, loans, and their credit cards. It don't get more mainstream than people aren't talking about vacations. They're talking about the everyday goods that they need, about keeping a roof over their head, food on the table, and in their kids' mouths and their mouths. That's the stuff that they're feeling pressure on right now. And I see it every time I go to the grocery store. People got their phones out and they're looking at apps and they're cost comparing whether they need to drive down the street to a different store to get a good. When people are doing that, I don't think they have an idea of what's coming after them. The American people Dow testing last night during that speech, when he made the comments about having defeated affordability and all that kind of stuff, it's when his numbers took a nosedive. People disliked it overwhelmingly because they knew it wasn't their lived experience. And you can lie to me about a lot of things, but you're not about to tell me I didn't spend what I know I spent just then at that grocery store getting half the things that I would have gotten last year for less than the value of what I spent.
Speaking of FedEx, one of the things that I find fascinating, and this is Reese's kind of playing field, not mine, is that the United States has a bushel of ill-gotten gains from these illegal tariffs. You know who sued them on Monday? FedEx. FedEx, to Angela's point, sued them for those illegal tariffs that have been passed to the consumer. So I'm interested to see how that pays out, because we're talking about billions upon billions of dollars that we have seen be taken in under illegal tariffs. One of the other things that he talked about was, kind of stealing Cory Booker's thunder with baby bonds. We've seen Nicki Minaj all over this and others, but he praised the Dale family last night for Trump accounts, something that Cory Booker's been talking about since 2018. So
mayors have been doing for about the last 20 years.
Correct.
Mayors across America have been setting them up in their cities.
And our friend from Stockton, California, if I'm not mistaken, yes, was one of the ones who did it.
His city did one as well.
Correct. Let's listen to both of these kind of back to back, where he talks about Trump accounts, and then let's listen to Cory Booker when he introduced baby bonds in 2018, and they sound the same.
Under our bill, parents like Megan can also activate their children's brand new Trump accounts. And I didn't name it. I did not name that. Nobody believes me, but I did not name it. It was named by a very tall man sitting right there in the third row. Nice man, a good man. Tax-free investment accounts for every American child. This is something that's so special and has taken off and gone through the roof. Millions will be pre-funded courtesy of the U.S. Treasury and private individuals like Michael and Susan Dell, who have donated $6.25 billion to fund the Trump accounts for 25 million American children.
Did y'all see the sister up in the box there?
Yeah.
I know it's not on topic, but
don't worry about it.
She was going to be there.
Who was that?
I love the fact she wasn't clapping, kept her hands.
Don't worry about it. I think it's important.
Let's go to Corey, and then we'll chat about it on the other side.
Look, love the concept, hate the name. You may have seen a lot of headlines about Trump accounts. Back in 2018, I first proposed something that we called baby bonds, which is simply the creation of an account for every kid born in the United States of America, seeded with $1,000, funded by the government across their lifetime. Then families, nonprofits, local and state governments, philanthropists, employers, they can continue to contribute to these accounts, helping children build wealth over a lifetime. That initial deposit with compound interest could grow into a fund that could launch a young person into a life of expanded possibilities. That's the power of compound interest that the wealthiest of the wealthiest use, but often people who are living paycheck to paycheck could never take advantage of. Here's how the Republican version should be improved. These accounts should be automatic. Every baby born should have an account opened on their behalf and seeded with $1,000. It shouldn't be this friction of having to go and set up those accounts. We should tailor the contributions so that our tax dollars go to the kids who would benefit the most, not just a windfall for wealthy kids. This policy should be made permanent, not just for babies born between now and 2028, but a birthright for all American children. We've always been a country that has said we believe in the power of all children. But here is us putting our money where our mouth is.
You know, I think this is so important because Donald Trump gets credit for things that, you know, many of our elected officials have been working on. Shout out to Cory Booker and Ayanna Pressley, who reintroduced this legislation again, protecting the needs and the desires of our children. When you think about who has like the conscience of the country in mind, it normally is members of the Congressional Black Caucus. While Donald Trump is proposing these accounts and shouting out Michael Dell, which is great. It was a generous contribution. What we should also remember is this is the same man who introduced, suggested, and envisioned the Big Beautiful Bill, which will also snatch food out of the mouths of children, take away health care, and endanger their parents. So it's a great program, but sadly, just like Christopher Columbus, it ain't his idea. That's all y'all got? Okay. I
was gonna jump in just briefly and ask you guys a question. I kind of want to do a quick round robin here with y'all. What are some of the things from Trump's speech that y'all can rock with? Some of the things that you wish that we could put, you know, Democrats and Republicans in a room, which is what most Americans want, to figure something out that's for the good of the country. What are some of those ideas that you all have? Starting with Reecie.
Well, you know, one thing he did, to Angela's point, take credit for was his so-called executive order on banning Wall Street from buying up large properties. You can't do that by executive order, but that is something that Vice President Kamala Harris was part of her platform, was getting to the heart of the fact that it is so hard to compete with Wall Street investors when you're a single family buyer, when you have to finance your mortgage. You can't just pay cash, or you can't call people up and say, hey, are you selling your home? I'll buy it, you know, whatever. And so I think that is a good idea, but that is one of those things, like many of the things he talks about, that he does on paper that have no teeth, that will not be enforced, and that are illegal. And so if he could actually rally Congress behind that, then that would be a good thing.
Andrew?
I think the assistance that his government has helped procure to lower medical and prescription costs for the American family is an important symbol. I will also note that the overwhelming majority, only a few hundred prescriptions are on that Trump site. There are thousands, of course, of prescriptions that people need and are prescribed. But in truth, the majority of the prescriptions there can be procured through your insurance at even a lower rate than are available on that site, with the exception of GLB-1s. I hope I said that right. I think it's GLB. Yeah, GLB-1s and the fertility drugs, which are about a third of what they would cost even in an insured scenario. So for folks who are looking at, trying to grow a family, my wife and I went through that process. It was extremely expensive. The medicine around that, that is probably the best thing. I think he gets credit for whatever negotiating they did, and hopefully it's a permanent by the way, reduction, and not a, sort of temporary while Trump is there and wills the power to penalize you, but that future presidents will also be able to preserve the access to those GLP-1 and fertility drugs.
Can I just jump in, though, and say that the Inflation Reduction Act under the Biden-Harris administration that passed with 0 Republican votes gave the government the authority to do these kinds of negotiations. They picked 10 drugs each year that they were going to reduce. It capped out-of-pocket costs for prescriptions for people who are on Medicare and Medicaid. And so Trump, again, built on the actual lawful authority that was established solely along Democratic lines. But he's just branded it differently than how Biden-Harris branded it.
That's right. And it's less sustainable, unfortunately. Being attached to him and not using the negotiating power of the federal government to bring those prices down, it's unfortunate.
One of the things that I think we all agree on is, making sure that Iran doesn't get a nuclear weapon, which will destroy and disrupt the Middle East.
I thought he already destroyed those.
No, he obliterated it. Let's listen to him talk about it and then talk about the fact that we're on the precipice of war with Iran.
As president, I will make peace wherever I can, but I will never hesitate to confront threats to America wherever we must. That's why in a breakthrough operation last June, the United States military obliterated Iran's nuclear weapons program with an attack on Iranian soil known as Operation Midnight Hammer.
So, one of the things that's kind of crazy, in my opinion, is that we have the most heavy artillery that we've had located outside of Iran since 2003. There's a military buildup, much like what we saw in Venezuela. The question is, for what? The CIA just met with the Gang of Eight recently, this week. Yes, something is happening in Iran, and we don't know what, but I thought that we obliterated their nuclear program. So, what exactly are we doing? I think Iran has the makings of another Iraq, which is devastating.
Well, and it seems all like this is inevitable, which it's not supposed to be because there's no congressional authorization. There's been no credible case being put forth. There's contradictions in terms of we obliterated it, but we don't want them to get it. Which one is it? This is pretty serious. And it just seems like this president and that idiot, Pete Hegseth, that degenerate, just think this is all fun and games. This is all war games for them when there are actual lives at stake here. And so this can be a multi-trillion-dollar disaster, multiple lives, thousands of lives, tens of thousands of lives. And Donald Trump still hasn't solved the other wars that he claims he solved. He listed off 8 countries, and not nary one of them wars or conflicts are solved thanks to Donald Trump. And this is not America first. We already have the president of Venezuela in New York City facing charges for what? And nothing has been done that actually needs to be done in terms of what's happening in America and getting these prices down, getting healthcare, making it affordable, fighting climate change. Nothing that actually is a problem is being solved. And he's manufacturing all these problems so that he can have something to do.
Reecie, your point around there's been no conversation with the American people, I just want to double tap, ! That, many of us, I think all of us on here lived through 9/11, 2001. And even having experienced that day, September 11th, there was still months-long campaigns by the administration to ready the American people for invasion. They had to make the case. Iraq, they sent this, y'all remember Colin Powell going down to the UN, selling that terrible speech full of lies that he later admitted to, and the administration, of course, had to cop to eventually. But that's what you do when you ready a nation for war. Why? Because you have to ready us for not just the cost financially, but of the toll on American men and women who will be dutiful and being sent to service under the belief that they're being sent because the threat to America is that great that it will require the lives of Americans. In this case, we got none of that. This man, as you said, and Pete Heck, they're playing on a chessboard, not even that. They're playing on a checkerboard, right? Moving soldiers around on a checkerboard. The repercussions here are huge. This is the largest buildup since the wars of 2002 beyond forward. So larger than what happened in Venezuela. And it needs to be. Why? Because Iran is a nation state of over 90 million people. Yeah, this is not going to be like what you saw.
And they have unique military capability.
They do.
They have unique cyber capability. One of the things, Andrew and Angela, they get tired of me saying this because I say it in every single show, Reecie, but nothing happens in a vacuum. Like literally nothing happens in a vacuum. One of the things that we saw, and there are people who follow this for a living, flight patterns, right? Prime Minister Modi, the Prime Minister of India, was actually en route, landed this morning in Israel. And so you're not going to attack Iran with Modi in Israel. That doesn't necessarily make sense. So you have a couple of days before something happens, and you saw him attempt to make a case in the State of the Union. Nothing was persuasive. And it all goes back to the con that is Donald Trump. I mean, we're going to have to really examine post his presidency the con that he got poor people to believe that someone who pisses in a golden urinal is one of them, and the lies that he feeds through the trough. This lie with foreign policy is the same thing. America first, this nationalism, we're no more never-ending wars, I'm ending wars, and yet it looks like young men and women who don't have the last name Trump are going to be the ones fighting this battle. And the problem that I have with this is not the prevention of Iran getting a nuclear weapon, because I am someone who was a big supporter of the Iran nuclear deal. And you know what? Trust but verify. They were actually being prevented from having those nuclear capabilities. What did Donald Trump do? Rip it up. Now we're here, one, on the precipice of them getting a nuclear weapon, two, on the precipice of war with Iran, and three, meaning that when our children get of age in college, there is a strong possibility and likelihood that we will still, maybe not be at war, but still have a military presence in Iran. When I thought that the inartful way we got out of Afghanistan finally ended never-ending wars. And apparently I was wrong.
Well, I can tell you this much. I'm going to predict this.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Donald Trump's kids are going to be at somebody's negotiating table getting all of the winnings for the American people's sacrifice. There's no doubt about it. That's been their past, and past is prologue. That's one certainty that we will have, regardless of this buildup, war and conflict, heads or tails. They're going to be at the negotiating table getting the grift.
War creates billionaires. Listen, but one of the things that go ahead, Reecie, I know you want to jump in.
I just wanted to add one more thing, because we talked a lot about Trump, but we do have to hold the Republicans in Congress accountable. They have completely abdicated their role in everything that relates to protecting the American people. They are allowing this, what appears to be inevitable march towards war with Iran. They don't want to have a war powers resolution that Tom Massey and Representative Ro Khanna have put forth. They did nothing when he was conducting those illegal boat strikes off the coast of Caribbean. They did nothing when he kidnapped the president of Venezuela. They've done nothing on tariffs. Every single time, everything that we've talked about that Donald Trump has done, he has done with the full blessing of a neutered Republican Congress. And so everybody who is upset with Trump, you have the opportunity, and maybe I should say this for the call to action,
no, that's it.
to do this, to hold the people accountable who are there to do a job that they refuse to do. And then the one last thing I'll say is we have a $38 trillion national debt. And that is already something that economists and all kinds of people are sounding the alarm on, because this big, beautiful bill that Angela mentioned is going to add trillions to the debt or to the deficit. And now you're talking about a war, trillions of dollars. And so that is going to make borrowing more expensive for everybody. I have to put it in terms that people care about, because people don't care about troops dying. People don't care about how many people we bomb around the world. But when we continue to explode our national debt, that makes it harder for the United States to borrow, which makes it more expensive for them to borrow, which makes it more expensive for us to go and get a car loan and get a mortgage. And so this has many implications outside of just, oh, well, it's another war. How do we get here? Oh, well, I'm going to continue to go to brunch, or I'm going to continue to go to the grocery store like nothing happens. This is very, very serious. In addition to the human aspect, it's very serious in terms of the toll that it takes on Americans as well.
You know, one of the things that we got to look forward to, though, is somebody's going to have to put a stop to this, and somebody in 2028 is going to have to kind of change the narrative. We need a refreshing
Any
look.
ideas? I'm messing with you.
Maybe we could talk about it in a call to
That's
action.
what I heard. I thought you were going to say the mini. Maybe talk about. We did that last week, didn't we?
We did. And I think we're going to talk about BAFTA and the mini AG.
Yep. You see how I be?
Mm-hmm.
You'd be right there. I mean, before we get to calls to action, though, I did want to one of the things that we talked about. We have about 10 minutes here that we can kind of delve a little bit into this topic. But when we saw people who have to be formidable to this operation that we're seeing from Republicans, the lies that we saw all week, we saw Gavin get caught up in the cyclical kind of social media space. How do you break through? How do you break through with that? And I mean, I know we're going to get to CTAs, but my question is, how do we fight back against Trump and Trumpism, seeing all the lies, seeing where we are, seeing what the political discourse is? Because after watching that State of the Union, I'm absolutely certain that there are at least two different Americas. And so, you know, what do we do to break through and make sure that we have not only a successful 2026 campaign cycle, but 2028 as well? That's like my big question.
We have to divorce ourselves from the belief that things are as they were. I mean, the biggest thing that's standing in the way of Democratic leaders, all the strategists who are whispering in the ears of these candidates and electeds right now of how we've got to, approach this with maturity, and we're going to be the folks who, steer the wheel back the other direction. Well, we can steer the wheel when we have the wheel. We don't have the wheel. Correct. And so right now, the master showman, the con artist himself, was conning last night. And while those of us who pay attention and read and follow the stuff understand the nuance, it didn't take nuance. I mean, it was flat on the nose, just outright lies. But there's a constituency out there. It is a diminishing one. But there's a constituency who are going to get what they will know about what happened in the State of the Union from these little sound bites of Donald Trump himself being the showman / con artist that he is. And so this is not America of yesteryear. I'm not even sure that we can date the change to Donald Trump. I think we this started to slip away before him. Yeah. But we're not there. And the quicker we learn that lesson, then we can get about playing on some real turf. But right now, I just think we're existing far too much in two different worlds. You're right, literal different worlds. We're over here being nice and polite, and our suits are buttoned up, and we're in decorum. And then he's eating our lunch, our dinner, and our meals for our kids the next day. That's what it looks like to me. We losing because he winning.
I think Andrew, that's a natural segue to our calls to action. I mean, I think the reason I asked that question is because after watching it, it's easy to find your way in being hopeless, because you're like 80 million people voted for this. Like, where am I? I had a conversation with Ken Cuccinelli in the early parts of this morning that I hope some people go watch, because I posted it on my IG, but the conversation was about the way that they view immigration and how they only want people who can firmly establish this Western civilization and Western culture. And they were saying that, look, if you're Haitian, if you're African, if you're whatever, if you're non-European, then you shouldn't be here because you can't acclimate to Western culture. And then the comment was made that you should not only acclimate to Western culture, but you should assimilate, lose yourself, lose your diversity. So I guess
they don't want that for just us. They want that for Europe too. That's their big beef with Europe. Big mad at them because they have brown people there, and it doesn't look like it used to look. That's what he said.
Yeah.
Trump.
Look, that's my call to action is this, and it's very brief. I mean, I'll start it because as we bury Jesse Jackson, as we go through these places, and last night I've been thinking about it a lot, but my call to action is really simple, Reecie. I mean, we just got to keep hope alive. I think that it's very, very easy to find yourself in a period of disarray, a disillusionment, and just saying, F it, right? I'm just going to take care of my family. Do you know how many people I've heard say, I'm just going to take care of my family, take care of my household, and not worry about all those other things? That speech last night was meant to further divide us. And I've always said that this is a time period where I wish Jesse could run for president of the United States. But this is a time where we literally have to remind people to keep hope alive, because that is what they're trying to do. They're trying to dim your light and take away your hope. So that's my call to action. Reecie?
Well, my call to action would be to Black people in particular that do not be unapologetic. I'll say this, be unapologetic about centering our humanity and demanding that it's respected, that our citizenship is respected, because there's a whole lot of gaslighting that's going on, whether it's in political spaces or just we talked about it earlier, in BAFTA and in the award space. There's a lot of people trying to tell us that we need to pipe down and that we cannot make others uncomfortable if we want to save democracy, if we want to move the country forward. And I don't think that that's our responsibility. Everybody else needs to learn how to exist in a space with Juneteenth, Angela, as a holiday, with Black men on stage not being violent. We need to learn, everybody needs to learn how to exist in a space where our humanity and our citizenship is not a threat to them. And that is not incumbent upon us to shrink, and that's not incumbent on us to be quiet. It's incumbent upon us to keep making noise. Like Jesse Jackson said, I am somebody. And if they don't recognize it, you got to make them recognize it.
That's real.
Angela?
That's real.
I think mine is just about deepening into our humanity. We spent Tuesday night thinking about what Donald Trump said on the stage, in the House chamber for the State of the Union, which was a whole lot of nothing, the longest State of the Union in history, as the graphic showed earlier in the show. But I also think it's important for us to find places of common ground. We talked last week ad nauseum about Reverend's Rainbow Coalition. We need each other. We Black folks, we don't have space or the numbers to divide. Other people of color, we don't have space or numbers to divide. So let us deepen into our somebody-ness, Reecie, and make sure that we tap into our humanity first. I think that knows no geographical lines, and that has to be where we are right now to bring this country together and hopefully, in the Reverend Jackson tradition, the world.
That's real. I was thinking about protecting peace in the sense that, Bakari, you had reference, I'm just going to take care of me, my family, my household. And the truth is I think that is like base level Maslow's hierarchy. But people are in the crouch position, right? We are bracing for impact. And the internet has been just saturated this week. We feel under assault on every side. Yeah. And because of that, it's even hard now as we talk about Tourette's to reach into our deep well of humanity to yet again prioritize somebody else's humanity in the context of also us being human and injured, right? And I would just say, let's do it anyway. That we have to, that we can hold these things. It's possible. In fact, I actually think it's going to be best for our head space, mind space, heart space to consider the fact that there are other aggrieved folks just like us, and our issues for redress should not be subjugated to anybody else's. They ought to be priority. There's no doubt about it. But they can be priority while at the same time realizing that A is still A, B is still B, C is still C, that multiple things exist as truths at the same time. And I think we can get amped up sometimes when the feed is full of all the things, right? And I would just hope, I know that we have our in touchness with our humanity, but I also know that we're in the crouch position and that well is no longer deep as it once was. Instead, I think we ought to resist the urge to pile on and maybe just look for a second at the humanity of others. And I actually think it's going to be best for our heart space, head in heart space.
Powerful as always, Andrew. I think that is a way to keep hope alive and move the show going forward. Hopefully people enjoyed this with Reecie Colbert, who is just amazing. And I hope you guys make sure you tune into her Sirius show. Follow her on IG, Instagram, all those things, where she is giving you the truth. And she made it through an entire show without cursing. So,
ooh, he probably did more than that. That's true. Reecie, what are your handles?
As always, we want to remind everyone to leave us a review and subscribe to Native Land Pod. We're available on all podcast platforms and YouTube. If you're looking for more shows like ours, check out the other shows on our Reason Choice Media Network. Politics with Jamil Hill, Off the Cup with Essie Cup, and Now You Know with Noah De Barrasso. Be sure to give those a follow, and don't forget to follow us too on social media and subscribe to our text or email list on nativelandpod.com. Also, our Substacks, as they pop up there, Native Land and Bakari Sellers have Substacks up there. We are Bakari Sellers.
You ain't the only one with a Substack.
Oh,
get your mentions in. Get your mentions in, people. Where they at?
They know mine. It's first and last name. They know mine. And Native Land Pod. You also didn't let Reecie share her social media
What are your
handles.
social media?
Oh, yeah. Go ahead, Reecie. Throw that out there.
I am Reecie Colbert on all socials, including YouTube. And you can get my game at mytrippinggame.com.
And make sure you...
Game. Okay.
Yeah, make sure y'all subscribe to them YouTube. That's dollars in people's pockets. Go subscribe, watch, listen, do all those things. Reese's dope. You will be more than impressed. But we are Bakari Sellers, Andrew Gillum, Angela Rye, with guest host Reecie Colbert. Welcome home, y'all. There are 256 days until midterm elections. Native Land Pod is a production of iHeartRadio in partnership with Reason Choice Media. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcast, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.